Hi, welcome to Buffzone. I'm Kyle Ringo. This is Brian Howell. It's UCLA week, but first let's rehash the ugly events of Saturday, Brian. Buffs went out to USC and did not play well. Got beat 56 to 28 by the Trojans. Cody Kessler threw 7 touchdown passes, set a school record. Not a lot went right for the Buffs. What was your reaction to seeing that score?
Well, I was surprised. When we talked last week, I mentioned I thought it was one that was going to get away from the Buffs, but I didn't think it was going to get away like that. I mean,
Right.
I thought a 20-point loss, 28's not a whole lot more, but it was not even that close. I mean, it was a blowout, and I was surprised that the Buffs went out and basically came out flat because we have not seen that at all this year. So I was surprised with it. I wasn't surprised they lost the game. I was just surprised with how soundly they got beaten.
Yeah, exactly. I guess the thing that was the biggest surprise to me is that they were coming off a bye week
Yeah.
and had 2 difficult losses previous to that, and so you would have thought that they'd be really eager to get back on the field and play again, and that didn't look like the case in the first quarter of that game. I mean, giving up 28 points and having some turnovers and some bad decisions, a lot of penalties in that game. It was sloppy. I mean, to be frank about it, and
Yeah.
that was surprising to me. The Buffs have more penalties right now than they had all of last season, and I know this year's team is a little bit young and whatnot, but they played a lot of freshmen last year and,
Right.
and that sort of thing. Any rhyme or reason what's going on there?
Well, I think anytime you think of penalties, there's discipline involved. I think there's a little bit of discipline. Maybe they're not as disciplined as last year, but in talking to coach and some of the players, I think that one of the other things is just defense. Officials are calling it tighter than they were last year.
Right.
There's a lot of aggression penalties, and I don't know about aggression, but I mean just going hard type penalties.
Right. Hands to the face.
Yeah, hands to the face and pass interference and roughing the passer. I mean, there was how many in that UMass game did they have? I mean, roughing the passer late in that game, 3 or
Right.
4 of them, and fairly close. I mean, on one drive there was 2 or 3 of them. So I think there's been a lot of those type of penalties.
It seems like there's hands to the face like 2 or
Right.
3 times in every game, and that's a change from previous years. Too.
Yeah, and I don't have the breakdown in front of me, but I don't know how they translate to things like jumping off sides. I don't know where they are in that regard as opposed to last year, because those are more discipline and kind of youth type mistakes that what I would associate with youth. So I don't know where they are in that regard, but definitely I think that it's a concern when you have already more penalties through 7 games than you did through 12 last year.
So UCLA is coming in here. They had a rough stretch, lost 2 games, but got back on track against Cal. They've had some trouble protecting Brett Hundley at times, so I think that's something that the Buffs will be mindful of and trying to put some pressure on him. But you got to be careful when you do that, because Brett Hundley is a guy who can burn you with his feet too. So, but I honestly see this as a winnable game for the Buffs. I'm not necessarily predicting a victory, but I think the Buffs at home always play better, and the Bruins have had their struggles this year, and I think it's possible that the Buffs could get this into the fourth quarter and find a way to win it.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, I see this kind of playing out a little bit like that Arizona State game here, that they were in it, going into that fourth quarter. Now they didn't make the plays at the end to win it, but I could see that same type of situation. I just expect a bounce back game, because this team has been resilient under Mike McIntyre, so I expect them to bounce back and have a much better performance, if nothing else.
Yeah, having said that, if they come out and play anywhere near the way they were playing to start that USC game, they're going to have a similar result this week, because UCLA is a good quality team, a lot of good players, a lot of guys who are going to be playing in the NFL on that team, and so the Buffs have to be on top of it right from the start this week. But if they do that and they play the way they had in most of their games earlier in the season, I think they could give themselves a chance to win.
Yeah, I would agree.
All right. Well, we'll be back next week to talk about Washington, and we'll see if the Buffs did bounce back.